Today we have some special panelists with us. Brian Klaus, neutral arbitrator, mediator, attorney extraordinaire at Klaus ADR Incorporated, located in Park Ridge, Illinois, and America's Heroes Group Advisory Board member. We also have with him Michael Pollard, a retired judge of Tucson City Court. Today's discussion is Tucson's Veteran Treatment Court and how that impacts our veterans. Welcome, Brian and Michael. You want to lead us off, Brian?
Sure. Good morning, Doctor.
Good morning.
Good afternoon, pardon me.
It's hard to tell with the snowstorm out there.
Yeah, I wouldn't know. And that's what I'm really glad to have our guest today.
Yes, sir.
Which is Mike Pollard. And Mike recently retired from the bench in Tucson City Court. And Mike is one of the early people to embrace the alternative court movement. And he started with homeless court a long time ago, expanded that to veterans court. And I'm gonna ask Mike to explain it, but Mike has really done some interesting work. And I know the topic is outside of the city, but you hop on the interstate here, you're 10 minutes out of town. You're in the middle of nowhere, Arizona. So the country is never very, and we're dotted with small little towns all around here. So Mike, welcome. Glad you could join us today.
All right. Am I on?
Yes, you are.
Okay.
Yes, you are.
Good afternoon. I would just point out, sir, that there's actually snow in Tucson, which happens about once every 4 years.
Yeah, it was snowing here the other day, Devon, and I walked out in shorts and a T-shirt, and all the neighbors were in puffy coats and stuff, and I was laughing my butt off. Mike, the nice thing about Mike is he is going to tell us freely about this program. He's retired now; he's not beholden to anybody, but he's also just a no baloney kind of guy, and he's kind of a humble guy. He's done great things with this program. So, Mike, would you mind telling us what the Vets Court here in Tucson is and why you started it? Because it's a great story.
I came back from Vietnam in 1970, and at that time, veterans were not exactly revered. As a matter of fact, what even my classmates in law school would tell me, we were here guarding the banks of the Santa Cruz. That for you Chicago folks would be the same as guarding the banks of Lake Michigan and taking care of the women. And I used to get so aggravated that I would get into arguments. I finally gave up and just decided that I would just tell people I was on a vacation in Southeast Asia. What prompted me that's what prompted me to start the program. In about 1970, I decided to start the program. I rounded up a person, Steve Cohen, from the Veterans Administration here in Tucson, and another lawyer. And I had to get permission. I called the presiding judge at that time and said, "Judge, I want to set up a veterans court." And she said, "What are you going to set up next, an unwed mother's court?" Ironically, I made a presentation about 4 years ago at a judges conference, and I used to tell that story about veterans court. And I told it that day, not realizing that judge was in the courtroom. He stood up and said, "I am that judge, and I have totally changed my mind." So basically, we started a program. So many of the veterans come back from their period of service. The person they've left behind is running the family. There's a difficulty in adjusting. They turn too many times to alcohol or drugs, wind up out of the house. And these young men and women who've never been arrested before get an offense like drinking in public or disorderly conduct. And that offense could just have a devastating effect on their employability. So what we decided to do was to set up a program that would allow these veterans to participate in the program and have the charges dismissed. The program was 6 months in length. Not only did it have legal meetings, but each veteran is assigned a mentor, someone who has served in the military before and has either participated in the program or is familiar with the program. We also offer housing, employment, and all kinds of services. The most interesting part is that mentor just becomes an instrumental person in the defendant's life. And it's so funny, when they come into court for the first time, I tell them that they have to have 6 hours of contact with their mentor each month, and we report on that at the meetings. They grumble and they moan. 9 times out of 10, when they come into the next meeting, they're arm in arm with the mentor, and they've become friends. So the program has just been terrifically successful. We get referrals from other courts, from the VA, and just by getting the word out on the street that the veteran can come in and apply.
Wow, that's fantastic. A few things ran through my mind when you were saying that. First of all, I want to start by saying thank you for your service. The reason why I joined back in 1984 is the way that veterans were mistreated. I just couldn't stand watching that. And I stayed in for 26 years. And I just really applaud you for your service. And the other thing is that, great men keep their passion burning in retirement. And it sounds like you are dedicated to be an honorable person and helping our society. And I just have to thank you for that and your expertise. And so, how do people get into this program? How do they find out about it? And is there a place they can go?
Well, you go to the website, which is... but more importantly, a significant number of them, they're checking in at the VA, and the VA questions them, and the VA then sends those people to us. The other thing is we work with almost all the social service agencies, the homeless groups, and they send them to us. All they have to do is send an email to the court saying that they want to participate in the Veterans Program, and then my former judicial assistant, the now judicial assistant to the new judge, runs their name through the computer, pulls up any cases, and many times they don't have, as I said, they don't have a single case, and so they join the program. I should mention that one of the pivotal things in setting up the program is buy-in from the prosecutor. The prosecutor is the gatekeeper, and the prosecutor has to approve the person for participation. They're very liberal about doing that, and probably the biggest single area that we see is domestic violence. Like I said, they get back from a deployment. They don't. The family dynamic has changed, and a lot of times they have difficulty adjusting. That results in domestic violence. I might point out that probably one of my biggest issues is the domestic violence people are very strict about possession of weapons, and as we all know, in the military, your weapon is your primary means of survival. So that is an issue, but we've been able to really work around it. But mostly we get them through the VA, through social service agencies, and simply the police officers. I designed a form on our traffic ticket citation, and it has 3 boxes that they can check. It says veteran ask yes or no, and if they check on the citation yes, my clerk picks that up and contacts the veteran directly to make sure that they want to participate in the program. And again, it goes into the court system. But primarily we get them from the VA. The officers are really good. If they arrest somebody on the street, most of them do ask and check the box that if they're a veteran, and if they are, they point them to the Veterans Court.
Wow, you really thought this through. I think that is remarkable. That is really a great advantage for our veterans, knowing that the police officers that they encounter, because many of the police officers are dealing, of course, with dangerous situations every day, and we have to applaud them for what they do. But many of our police officers are also veterans. But when the veteran is having difficulties, like you were saying, coming back from multiple deployments overseas, sometimes currently people are going in for 3, 4, 5 tours of duty, and when they come back, it can be very very difficult for them to readjust to our society and what their normal way of life was. And so it's good to know that you have this out there as a lifeline for them, that they're not going down a path where they are, ignored or unassisted.
And what's really interesting is most people know that they go to Afghanistan and Iraq, but the general public does not appreciate the fact that in those theaters of war, in Vietnam, we had a hooch, we had a rear area where we could go back and relax. Mm-hmm. Currently, the members of the armed forces, they're on alert 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And so it's not surprising that when they come back, and the military, the DOD does have an orientation program, but as I'm sure you know, when you're a week from getting out, you probably don't pay the greatest attention to orientation programs.
Yes,
but
right.
That's one of the most difficult things. People can't understand why they want to sit in the back of the room, why they jump when a door opens, and things of that nature. And so that's one of the things that we've also tried to educate the public to through our program and just through general education. It's not surprising that some of the incidents that do happen when you consider, most of them come back. The state of Tennessee has the best program. They've got a 1-week program where they're given an opportunity to adjust to civilian life. But most of them, particularly those in the Guard and Reserve, they could come back on a Saturday and they're back in civilian. They're out of that military milieu and back in civilian life on Monday. And it's not surprising that they have difficulty adapting.
That's right. And even for Vietnam and for the current war, wars that we've had with Operation Iraqi Freedom, Enduring Freedom, it's unlike World War II where you had, 3 months on a ship before you got back, and you can at least have a time to acclimate. I did a couple of tours of duty in Iraq, and it was 24 hours before I was back home and on the street. And it was just, a major change. And that transition time, as you're saying, can be very rapid. And people just don't know what to expect and how to deal with some of the feelings they're having or the circumstances they went through when they were overseas.
Yeah, I don't know how you do it, but I was blessed when I came back. I didn't want to be around people, period.
Yes,
and my aunt had a ranch here outside of Tucson, and I went and stayed there because when I wasn't in school, I could go to the top of a hill and I couldn't see anybody for miles around.
Yes.
It was perfect for me.
Oh, yeah, you need that downtime. Yes, yeah. So that's
so this is an opportunity for me to jump in. And
yes,
a couple of things I wanted to tell you, Dr. Arnold, is that this program works. I've been in Mike's courtroom. It's administered by one of the legal clinics at the local law school. It's all for free. The mentors, I've seen mentors who will go pick their person up and bring them to court and giving them the reality check when they're trying to tell somebody some baloney. And I say this, Colonel Arnold, I don't think you know this. I was a prosecutor at 26th and Cal for more than a decade in the felony trial division. So I can see where the criminal justice system, it's really good at sending people to the penitentiary or finding people not guilty. It's not very good at coming up with solutions. And Mike's program is good at coming up with solutions that attend to all the various issues. Like if you could talk a little about all the agencies you get involved to address housing, employment, health, family relations, all these things. It's a tremendous program, Colonel.
Oh, great. Add some success stories to that, too, Mike, because if you can tell us a little bit about what, Brian was just saying, just give us a little bit more of a description of that, the different programs available, and then how have you seen this transform veterans' lives? That's really what gets to my heart when I see that happen.
I had a case where the veteran, when he came into court, he was so belligerent and so obnoxious that we had to take him out of the court with court security. After 6 months, he came into the court. He had on a suit, he had a job, and he had a stable relationship.
Wow.
I mean, from a judge's standpoint, you can't say enough about the feeling that you've actually done something to affect a person's life. But we use La Frontera, which is the local behavioral health agency. We use Old Pueblo Community Services, another behavioral health agency, because a lot of the veterans have just had it with the VA. So we can refer them to Old Pueblo Community Services. Those are the two biggest agencies. We have an agency that works with them for homelessness, to find housing. That's a program here through the city. But again, if you're the average person, it's one thing to say, here's this program. But what we do is primarily the mentor takes them by the hand and leads them to the program, shows them how to fill out some of them haven't even filled out their forms for VA benefits, and the mentor helps them with all that to get it done and get it started. But La Frontera, which is the regional behavioral health agency, and Old Pueblo Community Services are our two primary behavioral health centers. And the mentor, the person from that social service agency, is in court when the veteran comes to court. And they come to court at least every month and sometimes every 2 weeks. And the mentor will say, and what's particularly helpful to me, the mentor will say, well, he got his kids back, or he got visitation with his kids. And I can't tell you how critical it is for a judge to relate to that young female service member and say, oh, so I understand you got, they beam when, and the other thing is there are other veterans in the courtroom. And if somebody's effing up, the other veterans in the courtroom say, hey, man, you can do this. You can do it better. And they really provide them with the incentive to complete the program successfully. So it's a great situation all the way around. But the situation with the guy, he was so obnoxious. I thought I was going to have to put him in jail.
Oh boy, that's
6 months. 6 months later, he was one of our star pupils.
It made me think about Superman, the change that he does. And it's that's a dramatic change. 6 months for someone to transform their lives in that way. But is there a website we can go to, or a telephone number? Because we're running really low on time. But we have got to have you back. You are just phenomenal, Judge Pollard.
I don't have it right in front of me, but I'll send it to Brian, and he can send it to you.
Okay, sure. We'll post it on our website and get that up there for you.
You go to the city website, and then you go to Veterans Court, but I'll send the information to Brian.
Oh, perfect. And Brian Klaus, you are an advisory board member extraordinaire. We are so honored to have you on this board.
And I'm looking forward. Thank you, Colonel. And I'm looking so forward to getting Mike back. He's just a wealth of info on an important topic that not a lot of people know about, and it's how to assist vets who get caught up in the criminal justice system.
Yes, and great men bring their passion into their retirement. I love this.